Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the first Tuesday coffee chat with John Willis and Jack Spirko and Nicole Sauce. We're here to talk about anything. And, somebody gave me feedback last month that it's like unloose the goose, only not. So if you want to get a question, I could bring the theme song back. I should bring the theme song back one of these times.
And we need to unloose something else for the three of us, though, like unleash the dogs of war or something. Like there's already a song for that too.
There is. Well, maybe we should cue it up for next month.
Yes, I think that's his plan. Of course, then we'll get copyright violations and shit. So.
Okay, well, it's been a month. It is now February, and I realized that we've been given the gift of one extra day this month. So what are you guys doing on that day to make your life better?
I didn't know we had an extra day in the month.
You get an extra day, John.
I don't even know what today is. I just know that yesterday you said, "Hey, we have a live with Jack today." So I'm assuming it's Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you, John. I had no idea. I didn't know we got an extra day. I don't think we actually get extra days. I think it makes me think of his daylight savings time, where like the old Indian chief said, only a white man would cut the bottom off the blanket, sew it back on the top, and say the day is longer.
We've been super nice weather the last couple of days. Really nice t-shirt weather. Get outside, do stuff right now. Ground's still a little wet. But going from snow and ice 2 weeks ago to this, it's beautiful out. Let's hope it holds. A lot of times in the last few years, we've gotten really warm and then freeze down. So we lose all those buds on all the fruit trees. We've really, it has wiped those crops out for the last 3 years. But we're super heavy in figs. We've put a lot of figs in the last every year for the last few years, and those seem to work.
Yeah, I've been madly trying to trim my fruit trees before it gets much warmer because they were definitely dormant when we went down below zero. And then I thought, okay, great. I'll get a jump on this. I'll have a couple of weeks to get it done. Nope. It's like I have 1 week and that is it. So when there's 25 minutes, I go out and figure it out. And the thing about me and fruit trees is I've never fully aligned in on how to prune the different kinds. So it's like I always have to go to the internet and look and then go back out there. Just because I haven't maintained many fruit trees besides apples and pears. So and then we've got peach and plum and all this other stuff, cherry. But they're just at the right age to do it in my food forest. They're about as, some of them are a little taller than I am, but they're little trees.
Yeah, we've been getting that too. Like this warm up, flower out, and then the flowers just get frozen.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that doesn't have this year. Like the only thing that's produced for me with any reliability last 2 years has been pears, and it's only a couple of the trees that are really late varieties. I don't have swelling on my fruit tree buds right now, but I looked at this morning, I took a walk, and all my mulberries have like huge swelling buds, and they're always first. And I'm like, come on, man, don't either get cold again or don't freeze. It can handle a frost, but what it can't handle is when you go out there and you're like, well, it looks okay, and you touch the flower, and it's like somebody dipped it in liquid nitrogen. You're like, oh, that's screwed now.
Yep.
But hopefully it will stay. The giant rat in Puxatawny says we get an early spring this year.
That means you better get your stuff in the ground right now.
Yeah. I just did a show yesterday on seed starting because if you want to put your plants out by like March 15, you should have done that already.
That's literally my topic for next Monday.
Okay.
It's like we're aligned.
Yeah.
People probably think we talk about this, but we don't. And I'm like,
we do not. We just follow the seasons. If the season says to do a thing, then we do the thing. I don't think it's public yet, but I did a video that's like an adjunct to my course, but I'm making it public for everybody eventually. And I think I uploaded it yesterday. Let me see. Yeah. I did a video on how I use compost to make potting soil. So that'll be out later today.
I just watch your guys' content and then make whatever you made 2 weeks later. As far as trimming trees, when you listen to the old timers, there's two takeaways. One of them is when you are comfortable with how much you have pruned, you have not pruned enough. And number two, they say take a cat by the tail, and if you can throw it through I picture it every time. We need to do a shirt of it. Taking a cat by the tail and throwing it through the branches. And if it can grab branches, you have not pruned enough.
But if it can't touch them and almost grab it, you've pruned too much, right? Like it should just barely get through the. I got that from Mark Shepard. I don't know how many other people said that, but he said when he was a kid, He worked at an apple orchard before they made all the orchards low trees, and they were big, full-size apple trees. And that's how the old man he worked for told him to do it. He said, you should be able to throw a cat through there.
Yeah. I see
you should be able to swat a leaf, but not grab a branch.
Yep. And then they
now
do those
the French say, do you want a tree or do you want fruit?
I want fruit.
Right. If you want fruit, you want to train your canopy like this.
And they grow those apple trees on wires too, man. So that main stem is really guy wired in so that it doesn't have to fight the wind. And then they run those branches out on those trellises.
You basically grow them like grapes. It's like an espalier.
Yeah, exactly.
But they don't do it on a wall. They do it out in the open. That's actually a really cool way to do it. I've seen people even like grow them like that and graft the branches together. And eventually you can take the wire away and the trees are a wall, like a fence.
That's cool.
Like by grafting them together. And then you get great cross pollination and all that other stuff. But I've also seen them done like you take a bunch of apple whips, and you cross them like this, and then you weave them as they come up. So there's tons of ways to play with apples.
Like willows.
Yeah. Do you grow apples on your property, John?
So we grow a lot of apple trees. We do not grow a lot of apples. We have cedar all over the place. And Billy and William, permapastures, when they were out here, I said, I've got 32 cedars to cut down. He goes, don't even bother, man. He goes, you've got cedars on the next property, and you got cedars on the next property, and you got cedars a mile up the road. He said, you're still going to have the same problem with it. He said Carrie Brown said there is an Arkansas variety that does really well here in Tennessee that is more able to get through that same issue. It's that cedar thing. It comes on. They look like little squid octopus. They're literally gummy like jellies, and then they harden up into this like cancerous type growth on there.
Arkansas black.
Arkansas. It's a great apple.
And that's cedar rust.
Cedar apple rust. And so we just put a food forest in here a couple of years ago, and we put in rust resistant apples, and the only tree that's dead right now is the stupid rust resistant apple. It's not. It's legitimately dead. And there's another one that's barely hanging on. I'm going to rip them both out and put something else in there because I don't feel like fighting it. You know, if I could get an old timey crab apple in there, maybe I'd try that.
That's what I've done with everything. If something doesn't want to grow here, then I stop growing it. Maybe 3 or 4 years later, I'll try it again and see if things have changed. And if it doesn't want to grow, screw it. I killed a lot of very expensive plants trying to grow shit on top of rock, and it just doesn't work. And I do what works now.
I'm lucky to be surrounded by permaculturists and communities that grow food and have been doing it since the 70s in the area. And when I talked to them about this issue, they said, here's what we do. We grow sour cherries. We don't grow peaches. We don't grow anything else. Sour cherries, figs, and bush berries, because everything else doesn't do great here. And so why fight it? Just go with what goes great here. So that's something that we'll see. We'll see if I get plums and peaches or not. I'm not a big fruit eater anymore since listening to Ken Berry for so long. So it's like, if it doesn't happen, I'll put nuts in or something else.
Our blueberries.
There are hardy pecans you can grow no problem. And I don't know why you don't have Chinese chestnut.
I do have Chinese chestnut.
Okay, good for you.
Yeah.
I take that back.
Yeah.
Our blueberries and figs do really well. And our cherries, the best cherries I've ever eaten in my life are off our cherry trees, but I only get like 2 cherries. There'll be 3. I'll eat one, and I'm like, I'm going to save this one for Amanda and Cody. And then the next day they're gone, like birds got them. I have to net them or maybe even build a cage over 2 of them just so we can get cherries off of them.
John, are you aware of it's really actually a tiny plum, but they call them cherry. It's called Nanking cherry.
No.
You need those.
Okay.
They grow like a bush, and they will love your climate. And you have acidic soil. That's why your blueberries do so well.
Yep.
They will go absolutely apeshit there. When I went up to Montana for one of the seminar things I helped teach, there was a bush cherry about the size of like a 55-gallon fish tank, kind of that spread. And like 10 of us ate as many as we could off of it, and they were still there.
Awesome.
They're just not a huge pit to fruit ratio. They're a little bit smaller, but they're freaking delicious. And they grow like weeds.
Yeah, growing like weeds is exactly what I want in my food forest.
They do okay here, and then they die. So like they'll do like a couple, 2-3 seasons, and then if they get just that much stress because we're alkaline instead of acid, they just like it looks like somebody poured acid. Same with blueberries. I put a blueberry in. It'll like be beautiful. It'll produce its first year, and then go in our heat of the summer, and it just looks like somebody pissed on it. It just goes, I hate you. Why'd you put me here?
So Angie does ask, what do they taste like and what are they used for? I saw you answered that, Jack.
Yeah.
So they're a really good eating apple, naturally sweet, not too sweet. The outer skin is a little harder than like your typical grocery store apple. And because of that, if you want a root cellar an apple, the Arkansas Black will last the longest in the root cellar out of any apple I've tried. I used to get a crate of those at the farmer's market every year. I don't grow them. And they would go well past December in my root cellar, which is not even a proper root cellar. So without getting mealy. Like they stay pretty crunchy as long as they've had a good season. So I love that apple just in general. I may try to put one in, but I kind of decided the food forest was telling me it didn't want any apples, and it's not sure it wants that pear tree either.
The whole back edge of our property is blackberries. They're wild blackberries. So I don't care for blackberries. If I'm going to put a blackberry in, I'm going to put a blueberry or something in. But we've got 400 yards of blackberries, and if you leave any soil here unattended, you will end up with blackberries in it.
They make damn good mead, but you're not a mead drinker, so blackberry mead is better than a good cab.
Yeah, we get wild raspberries here too in the same situation.
What's good too is like use blackberry and do like a blackberry vinegar, and then reduce it so it's like a fake balsamic, and that's just awesome for cooking and shit. Like that's how do you. I'm not big on sitting there popping blackberries because they're full of seeds.
So what we need to do is a workshop at John Willis's when blackberries are coming on to make the balsamic for them. So
we could do both. We could make blackberry,
and then people could go home with it. Like that would be.
Yeah, they're not going to go home with mead. That takes a year to age out, right?
Yeah,
especially if you make it like that. But we could do both.
Yeah. That's the magic, being able to make vinegar for food preservation. If because everybody's talk is without refrigeration. So how do you get that vinegar? Who's got the
shortcut version, dude?
That's mine. That's my old man. He's 18 years old and he's senile, can't see very well, and he's like, "Who's here? Aren't any of my friends here?" And then he hears my voice and he stops.
That's cool.
Yeah, he just decided to. Yeah, he walked in, meowed at me, and walked out. That's what he does. Okay, here's one from Christopher. Have you seen the method of growing in desert, dry, windy areas where you dig a pit big enough to live in and plant down there?
Wafati?
I think he just means you dig a pit so the wind doesn't hit it, and then you plant in like the valley.
What's the in-ground greenhouse called?
Oh, well,
it's a.
Oh, it's not a Wafati.
It's not a Wafati.
That's
that natural building
like
thing.
Hobbit house.
Paul's Hobbit house.
And he gets to call it. He's always like, it gets pronounced Wafati because I invented it, so I can pronounce it however I want.
That's what he told me.
I know what he's talking about. And there was a dude in Nebraska growing oranges in one.
There's a guy in Canada.
Wallapini.
Wallapini. Yeah. I was Googling it madly.
Yeah.
Look, AJ's got it.
Tag is building a Wallapini. There's a guy called Archicopia in Canada that has an enormous one, and he's got bananas in the middle of winter on a regular basis. A pretty neat channel that guy's got. Somebody said, "Are black currants still illegal?" I don't know. Allowed versus able. I want them simply because you said they are illegal. I couldn't even identify a black currant, but I'm definitely getting some.
It's probably not illegal in Tennessee. There's different states that have an issue with pine rust or something like that, and they apparently don't get affected by it, but they carry it. And if you have a pine rust problem, I promise you it's not John's black freaking currants that are pine rusting your pine trees. But West Virginia, they're banned, and I don't know where else.
My water hyacinth has never escaped the property either, and it dies every winter. So
does yours come back?
No.
Okay.
No.
I always see Jack for exit and build, and I'm like, hey, bring a water hyacinth.
Yeah.
So mine die every year.
Mine's dead this year. I'll have to buy more this time.
Yeah, I'll just buy some then.
So Spirko turned me on to Atlanta goldfish, and they're on Amazon. And that's where I buy my koi from. And all you need is I buy 3 water hyacinth, and it spreads. You can buy your duckweed, you can buy your polywogs, your crawfish, your everything from that place. And when you order it, I have it the next day when I place my order. and they've been great to do business with right off Amazon. Super easy.
Back to currants before we leave that, John. You should totally, and Nicole should too, because of your climate. Currants and gooseberries, freaking tons of uses, and you make a new one by cutting one and sticking it in the ground.
Gooseberries are hard to kill in Tennessee because I've had 2 gooseberries in pots that I forget to water and aren't automated. And they're now 3 years old, and I get berries off them every year.
Just be careful with your varieties, because some of them are like more thorny than locust.
They are. The redneck hates any thorny thing I put in.
But they're delicious. I mean, gooseberries are freaking fantastic. That's why they're thorny. They're like, they got to protect their shit till it's right.
Yeah.
If you look, like, the best tasting stuff on the planet is all, as far as vegetation, it all has a way to try to hurt you to protect itself, right? Like, because it doesn't want to be eaten until it's ready to spread its seed.
That's everything in Tennessee. It wants to stab you, cut you, lay eggs in you, envenomate you.
You need to come down here.
Don't move here.
This goes up like 10x if you come down here. Like,
yes,
we have trees without thorns that will still, the deadfall will still go through your shoe. Like our live oaks, like if there's a piece of twig sticking up the top of a piece of live oak that fell and you step on it with thin-soled shoes, it goes straight through there like it's a thorn.
Yes.
Even though it's dull, it doesn't make, it's just so hard. It doesn't matter that it's dull, and it hurts more because when it goes in your foot, it's pushing more flesh out of the way.
It's like fire hardened.
Yeah. Yeah. Except it's not. It's just live oak. Like
I know somebody who stepped on a black locust thorn. It went up through her shoe into her toe, and she almost had to have her toe amputated.
Oh, wow. My grandson
it was really close. They were going to take her toe off, and they're like, well, we got in there, and we think we can save it.
What did it break off inside or something?
Well, it touched the bone, and then it got infected. Yeah.
Yeah. Bone infections.
Bone infections you don't mess around with, right?
No, that's like, if something touches bone, they should be pumping antibiotics into the wound the day it happens.
So Jeff T says white mulberry, good fodder. We put in, I think we put in 300 Russian white mulberry, 300 hybrid willow, 300 hybrid willow, white mulberry, and
poplar.
There's a poplar. That's it. Hybrid poplar.
Poplars. Yep.
Yeah. Whose plan do you think that was? I mean,
I know exactly whose plan that was.
Nick
Ferguson.
Yeah, something.
If only you could come to an event in April and see him explain how to turn trees into food for your animals.
Yeah.
That
would be really cool, wouldn't it?
It would. I think there's an opportunity to do that somewhere.
I think so too. I think he has a nut tree he has a hazelnut tree in the mix this year. He might already be sold out at rareplantstore.com, but I was listening to that and I was like, oh, I love hazelnuts. I actually just pulled 2 hazelnuts out that weren't producing here because I was tired of it.
He put a tree guild together this year and he's calling it the Deer Garden. It's like persimmon and like 4 other things. And like you just plant a grove of that. And then when the deer come, you shoot them and it's a deer garden. And that whole term came from like when I first started, it's like 2009 or something. I was doing all this content about gardening and this dude wrote in. You could tell he was like a Kentucky or Tennessee redneck. He's like, you could almost hear the drawl in the text, and he's like, I planted me a garden last year, like you said, and I hardly got any food out of it. I had to shoot 7 deer over it just to get anything out of it. I'm like, you have a deer garden. You don't need to complain. I'd rather eat venison than tomatoes anyway.
Yeah, that's
I do know how to keep deer out of your garden really easy, though. Real easy.
My neighbor saw a 10-point buck in August.
Oh, wow.
And that's all he wanted all season was to get that buck. And he spent days waiting for it. And one time he had on a crossbow season, he had like a shot and his crossbow failed and then it ran off. And he was so mad. And then, I don't know, it was 2.5 months later, a couple days before the end of season, he got it. Oh, and cool. we had like pictures all printed up to put in drawers. Like, have you found your buck yet? And all of these things. But, but he shot 3 other deer. So it was a good deer season here.
If you do have deer garden problems, put 1 strand of wire around your deer garden. Take some foil, and about every 10 feet, put a strip of foil on your wire, wall the fences off, and then smear peanut butter on all the little flags of foil, and then turn it on. And then set up a camera, because that's the one thing I regret. I did that in Arkansas, and I didn't get it on video. This doe comes in, her ears are kind of back, like, what is this thing? And she sniffs it, and she's like, Ugh, and then the tongue comes out, and then she went like this way, like a horse, over on her back, flipped around and hauled ass. And all of a sudden, my garden stopped getting raided by deer.
She told all the other deer, "Don't go near that. Don't go near that."
I think I'm just the only one I saw. I'm pretty sure they all had to make their own mistake. They all had to FAFO.
I wonder if that would work for coyotes.
I doubt it. Coyotes? Are the coyotes eating your vegetables?
No, but they would want to eat my sheep.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
Your dogs.
Put
Your
sheep.
dogs.
It might work. Put like rendered tallow. Smear that on there.
You got
for my dogs might try to get that too, who are with the sheep. Yeah.
But are your dogs are handling the coyote issue, aren't they?
They are. It's another friend of mine doesn't have dogs and is very worried about coyotes. And I was wondering if she could do that because she has like perimeter electrical, like 2 layers of it before you get to her sheep.
But you know what the answer is?
Dogs.
Yeah, the dogs fit like I don't know why people go so around and around and around over dogs, man. Dogs literally remove 95% of any issue we would have here on the property. You have to be fenced, but once you're fenced, man, there are no issues. I've got coyotes on all 3 corridors on the edges of the property, never inside. We don't have any problems inside these fence lines with anything.
No, I heard them last year, and you had 500 people on the property. I still heard them howling at night.
Oh yeah, man, when they get on a kill out there. But I mean, my dogs, like, we don't even have bird of prey problems with these dogs now.
Yeah, it's rare here too, and I don't have the setup John has. But we've taught our dogs to bark at the sky when there's a big bird.
Yep.
And I was actually hearing about people having problems with baby lambs getting nailed by hawks. I'm like, I don't think that would happen. Like, I think the dogs would.
Yeah.
Would
like golden
not let that happen.
Yeah, we didn't even
Cooper's hawk taking a baby lamb. What's a baby lamb weigh? About 6-8 pounds?
Maybe that much. It's not. It depends, but yeah, not a lot.
Well, a 2-pound Cooper's hawk ain't carrying that away, so that's got to be bigger birds that's doing that.
Yeah, we got bald eagles. We've got
to it.
We've got bald eagles. We've got, some bigger hawks and stuff. But man, we didn't even teach the dogs. The dogs just do it. And then with the guineas on the property, they always early alert. If you look at guineas, there's always one up. And it's cool to just watch them because when that one goes down, another one comes up and they take that high, whatever the highest mound of dirt or wherever. And they're always watching that sky and they have that different alert, man. And those dogs, they notify right on that alert. If the dogs are even asleep, man, all of a sudden you won't see any dogs. And when those guineas go off, boom, you've got 5 dogs everywhere.
Yeah.
Just waiting.
They figured it out. They've worked it out that when that bird does something, something's up. Geese are the same way.
Yep.
When you watch your geese move, you'll always see one head up and like it's exactly that same thing.
Yeah. That's why I like to put young dogs with older dogs. As the older dogs get older, because they'll have a couple years to train up those younger dogs.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the easiest thing, especially if you have them garden property. You just have to teach core obedience, and then let the pack teach them what to do. Like Lucy, our husky mix, she chases bad birds, but I never did anything. It was kind of weird because she was a weird stray, and I didn't ask her for much. Just like don't bite people, and don't run away, and don't bother the cats. And the cats fixed that for me. She had a 5-year war with Dana Cat. And Dana just doesn't forgive. But one day, I probably had her about 18 months, and she comes tearing ass around the house, barking her brains out. I'm like, what the hell's up with her? And next thing I know, she's got her front feet up on a telephone pole that brings our power line in, and there was a buzzard sitting on that pole.
Nice.
And I'm like, well, I don't. And then like a couple weeks later, there was a guy delivering mail, and she's out there losing her shit, and she never did that before. And Charlie's just laying on the porch like, I don't have to do this anymore. I've handed this shit off. I'm there if they try to get in. I'll wait.
That's cool.
Angie, are those Anatolian Shepherds trained? That's good. Anatolian Shepherds are a good dog.
For people on the audio, somebody says they have Anatolians.
Yeah.
But Nicole's asking if they're trained.
So Anatolians are, those are the 2 most common around here for sure, Pyrenees and Anatolians. And the Anatolians have more ass behind them. They're going to be a little more aggressive, a little bigger, faster to bite and do the job for sure. But like and we have big Super Trooper Anatolians, which are, we have Kangals from Turkish mountains, and the Pyrenees, we didn't train those dogs. They just did all of that stuff on their own. And then when we put the big dogs with them, those Pyrenees, they started doing what the Pyrenees did. So we run Pyrenees simply because we have them and they're old. But we're adding, like, when you add those bigger dogs, man, they really do that job. And it doesn't take much. Like, we didn't train those dogs to do anything. They just did it. And even before we ever had any fencing on the property, the goats would leave the property and the dogs would always be with those goats.
Yeah, I have Anatolian Pyrenees mixes, and the way I got them was the veterinarian came out early on with the flock, and she was like, you've got to have dogs with these so that you don't have to bring them to the barn every night, which will expose them to getting worms. I know somebody who has 2 for free that are already trained, and they were just, the lady, she said, this is the last time I'm breeding them, but my goal is not to have goats or sheep ever killed by stray dogs. And so she just, like, as a mission, lets them get trained by the mom. And I mean, that was super lucky for us. We did have to, it took us about 3 months of training to get them bonded to the sheep and also so that we could handle them. But they've been awesome.
We have a new Pyrenees. I guess I forgot all about her. I do have a Pyrenees pup, and she's not even a year old, and it's the smartest dog that we've had on this property so far. And she's back there with those sheep, and I'll go back there and look. I'm like, man, where's that dog? How'd that dog get out? And she'll be laying down there in the middle of those sheep with all the lambs.
Yeah. Isaac says, hold on. How does a barn expose them to worms? Well, the way they get worms is that it comes out of their poop over time, or parasites. And if you're rotating them so that they're not on the same place, some people say 14 days. I go 60 to 90 days, actually. Then they're never exposed to what hatches out of their poop. So if they get a parasite and then it's something that could spread, they're not exposed to that because the cycle of the parasite coming out and needing a host is broken. If you're putting them in the barn every day, they, like, I know somebody who is meticulous with cleaning her barn and hasn't had a worm problem, but it's more likely to happen because they're on the same ground over and over.
So we have rabbit trays under the rabbits, big cement trays. And when the fly load starts coming in, we just sprinkle, just a tiny bit of lime. I saw somebody in here say for the barn, if you just sprinkle lime down in there, man, we put lime down and the flies are gone. It definitely kills out all the larvae.
What do you do with all your rabbit droppings? You just throw them out cold, or do you compost? Or
so we top dress stuff cold, right out hot. We'll top dress with
That's
it.
what I meant, really.
Yeah,
like, you're not composting it.
No, I do. I take it all and just put it. I have pallets, 10 by 10 compost area, and I just heap that in there. And that stuff will be 3 feet tall. And within a couple of weeks, man, it'll just be down to 18 inches.
Yeah.
I just top dress hot, and since doing that, my garden's never been better. Like, it's been the #1 best. I've done so much to that garden. Super easy. Just throw poop on it and then mulch over the top, and it's been all it's needed.
For maybe somebody that's listening that doesn't know what you two guys know, the reason I even said cold is because it's what's known as a cool or a cold manure, meaning you can use it straight out of the rabbit's butt, where, like, you shouldn't do that with chicken, turkey, cow. Like, all of those things are considered hot manures. So what they mean by hot is they're using it without composting it. And what I mean by cool is you don't have to.
Somebody said they have an issue with bears. Anatolians will take care of bears. When you get out west and you have a higher predator load, now you said brown bears, Pyrenees, a couple of Pyrenees would take care of brown bears also. But when you get out west with the brown or black bears, but when you get out west with brown bears and bigger mountain lions, Anatolians will do it, Kangals, Akbash, Caucasian Shepherds, and typically those dogs are longer hair too. So you're going to have a cold winter, and those dogs typically have a longer hair too. Now, Anatolians are super short hair, but I see them in the ice and snow. My Anatolians are straight out, or the Kangals are straight out in the ice. And they don't, like, we build all these straw huts for them, and we give them dog loos, and those dogs don't use none of that. I spend $1,000 every winter on straw, and every year, and they don't use one bit of it.
Huh.
Yeah, ours during that ice storm, after the first super cold night when it went down below 0, T went over to the barn to, make sure ice was broken, and he could not find one of the dogs. And this dog has a history of getting stuck like under the barn subfloor. So he's looking for the dog, finally finds it out in the pasture, covered in snow, eating a rabbit sickle.
Yep. Yeah.
It cared not that it was like 6 degrees at that point. But yeah.
We had a husky years ago named Lakota, and my wife would always freak out when it would snow when we lived in Pennsylvania for those few years. He needs to come in. He doesn't want to come in. And you have like a burrow in 3 foot of snow, and all you see is like the black tip of his nose sticking out. She's like, he's going to freeze it. He did that himself. Leave him alone. He suffers through summer. He's in his nirvana right now. He thinks he's a sled dog again.
Okay, here's a fun question. Any tips for keeping your dogs from eating chicken poop?
Don't worry about it. Let them eat it. It's a dog. It's going to eat turds. It's what it does. I don't know. Give them good teeth cleaning chews or marrow bones or something and go on with your life. The only thing I get irritated with is our dogs will eat out of my open pit compost where I'm aging my stuff for kickers. And the only reason I care about that is because I wanted that in there. That's why I put it in there. It's for the birds or it's for the black soldier flies or whatever. But I don't care. If they eat poop, they eat poop. Right? I mean, if they're eating it, there's probably something in it that they need. And that's why they're intrinsically knowing that they should eat it. So the first thing I would say is, what are you feeding your dogs? And if you're feeding them like Walmart brand kibble, that's probably why they're eating poop. But my dog is doing some things right now because he's getting older. And when I talked to the vet about it, his entire response, and this is a man that's been practicing medicine for animals for 35 years. And he said, dogs are gross. That was this entire, dogs are gross.
They are.
They lick their butts. They eat turds. They're gross. That's what they do. Leave them alone. They'll be fine.
I watched my dog eat this much coyote poop on a walk, and I couldn't slurp it down. I almost vomited just watching it. And the first thing I did was text Riles, and I'm like, what nutrient is she perhaps missing right now that she is doing that? Because I could not keep her off the coyote poop for the last 2 months. So I probably just need to feed her a rabbit stomach.
Maybe.
I say that all the time, right? We especially when people are coming over, we clean all those water troughs and we get all the algae out. And that's just some bullshit that you do for you because your dog eats poop. And the first thing your dog does when it gets off your property is goes and finds some dead, rotted stuff, rolls around on it, and eats that too. They do not care. They're drinking straight out of that duck pond, no matter how fresh of water they have. They want that nasty water.
Mine do it all the time. You go out and you're filling new duck ponds.
Yep.
And the one you haven't dumped yet that has a day of crap in it, they could be drinking the water coming out of the hose. Nope. They want the poop water. Yep. And I've just stopped fighting it. My dogs are healthy. They never get sick. They don't, get diarrhea or throw up or anything. And you got to understand, guys, a dog can eat things that will literally kill you.
Yeah.
I've seen dogs eat we had one time I had a Brittany Spaniel and he ate a possum and we didn't do anything about it because we didn't figure out he ate it until 2 days after he ate it. It was laying dead on the road and nobody wanted to pick it up. And then it disappeared. And we found pieces of the possum chewed up that he left. And we're like, well, he ate the possum. He ate the possum's guts full of maggots and he was fine. And that's when I was 14 or whatever. I'm like, I am never worrying about this again.
Yep. Yeah, we keep fencing around our rabbit area, which is 20 by 30. And that's simply to keep the dogs out because we want the rabbit manure and the dogs will eat it.
Yes.
They'll eat every bit of it.
I'm just wondering, could you come up with a system where you have worm bins under your rabbits? So you're just making compost without doing anything.
I feel
just in the bottom, drawer you pull out and you take your compost.
I know who needs to design that system and you know him too.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have too much manure for that. When we move the trays there's tons of worms under there.
Yeah. Yeah. If you put them into a bin system though, they will build their population to the amount of food they have.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then in the summer, you'll end up with BSL, black soldier flies in there too.
Yeah. We have soldier flies all over. Yeah, we do.
Those things, people buying them and shit. I'm like, what are you doing? Unless you live in a place where they don't exist or something. I had 2 worm bins in my shop closed. And about July last year, I went and I opened one to feed them, and I opened it, and like freaking soldier flies were like, I guess they could get their eggs on the zipper for these worm farms. And then the baby little maggots could get in, but when they matured, they couldn't get out. So every time I went out to feed them, like they were hitting me in the face and flying all over my shop. I went and got one of my big Tractor Supply fans and opened the back door and like blew it out to like try to suck them out of there because they were literally everywhere. So I don't know why anybody buys them.
So guys are using, when they're growing them, they're using the tailings off of brewing, all the grains and stuff. And that leftover, that's what they're using to feed those things when they're actually cultivating them in containers and stuff.
They eat coffee grinds too.
You can get IBC totes full of that stuff.
Yep. Yeah. If you get like spent brewer's grain, that's valuable. And then again, coffee grinds. So like most Starbucks, if you go in and say, I need coffee grinds, they'll hand you like a full garbage bag full of coffee grinds, like any day of the week. Long time ago, when I first discovered they did that, they were putting out these little like bags of like, this big, probably like 5 pounds worth of coffee that weighed 10 because it was wet for everybody, like, in the spring, because that's when people asked for it. And I went in, I'm like, do you guys still do that? And dude's like, hold on. And he like, it was like a contractor bag. And I'm like, how much can I have? He goes, we throw like 50 of those away a day.
Wow.
You can have as much as you want. And it was one Starbucks. I just like caffeinated soldier flies, I guess, then. There has to be something you and David can do with that, Nicole, at the next workshop.
Caffeinated soldier flies. I heard your segment on making biochar out of coffee grounds.
Yeah.
And I realized what I have is coffee beans, which would be even better. Like I have a 5-gallon bucket of them right now that I've been pouring down a sinkhole.
Because they're bad beans?
Because if a roast is messed up, there's that. Or when it's extremely cold, before I can roast, I have to do a batch that will not taste good. So I have this bag of really crappy beans that I got like for 49 cents a pound. Like they taste terrible. And I just keep that bag and I use it as my starter run in that situation. But I end up with that. And when you said that, I was like, I could probably biochar those, and they're actually the perfect size.
They're excellent. I don't think they would work in the little Michael Whitman stove you have, because we tried all kinds of. Well, I didn't do. I'm like, it's for pellets. And when we had the workshop here, there were students. They were out like snipping little pieces of locust branch and all, and they tried like everything to burn anything in there other than freaking wood pellets, and nothing worked. And they finally gave up. I'm like, it's a stove. Well, I'll tell you what. It's at Blue Sky Biochar, guys. I don't get anything for referring it. I went out and I found out I could buy like the softwood pellets at Tractor Supply are $6 a bag, $5.95 for a 40-pound bag. I've been running 10 batches, about an hour each, every day to make all my biochar until I start making kiln biochar again, because now it's all wet and all, and I don't want to try to have to like stack the wood in my shop to dry it out. So all my spring biochar is being made out of these pellets, and it doesn't make a lot, but you literally like stick them in there, put a little fire gel on the top, light it, turn it on, set a timer for an hour. At 1 hour, I got to have an old pot with a lid. I just dump it in the pot, throw the lid on it to extinguish it. And then if you try this, Nicole, because I know you own one, you need to rinse it out with cold water, because if you're running it continuous, the heat will build up, and that little foam stuff on the bottom that keeps it from transferring the heat to the bottom, it will melt. That's an ask me how I know one right there, right? Like, and so I only melted a little bit off, and now my policy is at the end, I take it my outdoor sink, I rinse it out, throw another 3 cups of char in there, light it again, turn it on, and you can go through a bag in about a week like that, and it'll make like half a 5-gallon bucket. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but go price it. And then it also takes away the need to crush it, because it's pellets. Have you ever seen what happens to wood pellets when they get wet?
Yeah,
they just fall apart. So I don't even crush it. I just throw it in, and it's going to fall apart in time.
Yeah, wood pellets were my hack for when I could not rotate my pigs, and they were creating the mud slick. That you would throw wood pellets on that, and it would absorb all that moisture, make it so you could walk on it. That was my interim, because I didn't have access to wood chips right then. So that worked great. But
do you remember Triple?
Yeah.
Santa Claus looking dude that comes to the workshops once in a while, ain't been around in a while. They were improving their property. They were taking those softwood pellets and they were chisel plowing the pellets into the ground, kind of like hugelkultur light on a broad scale to put organic matter in the soil. And then they went to no-till after that. And so I don't know if it worked for him or not, but I know he was trying it.
Interesting. Yeah, I could just run the beans through my roaster till they're really charred.
You could do that, except you might set your roaster on fire again.
I mean,
would
that's
goats,
part of the job.
Would goats eat those beans?
The coffee beans?
Yeah.
Probably
You're a
not.
dick. No, I mean,
They
you
were
just want her
charcoal,
goats
they
on her
might.
roof again.
no, I'm just curious. I mean, if that's a way to pass them through the goats so that
Oh.
they would break down on the soil.
Oh, like the coffee they get from Madagascar or Sri Lanka or
The
whatever.
civet cat.
This raccoon-looking thing shits it out, and then they pick it out of the turds. And
No, I was just thinking like a goat would probably crush those things,
Yeah.
and then put them
Yeah.
through their digestive system, as opposed to just dumping them in a sinkhole.
So caffeinated goat juice would not just
It
be
would
a
be
joke
like
anymore.
an actual thing.
I don't like goats, and I just can't imagine. Like, it's like feeding a baby coffee ice cream.
I know a lot of like brew guys feed all those grains and corn and stuff to pigs afterwards.
Yeah,
and
I
then
get
the pigs
that.
are drunk.
But there's no alcohol in the spent grain.
Well, they're still drunk, man. When you
It
get
must
that
ferment or something on its own.
yeah, those pigs are like they are drunk, clearly drunk when you give them those tailings.
Huh.
Yeah, the one sadness I had, the idea I was going to do with caffeinated goat juice that like it's past now was get Mountain Dew and relabel it.
Oh.
I never got that done. John, his buddy David and I pull pranks on each other, and one year he told this like elaborate story about my life that ended
Pretending to be her.
pretending to be me, that ended with me selling caffeinated goat juice.
It started out that she was a poor girl growing up in the slums,
Of
and
Portland.
her mom would sit around with fingernail clippers and clip like tin and stuff to make glitter to sell to the stripper club. And it goes from that to and it's like a 10-minute, very detailed story that he had to come up with on the fly in about 10 minutes. And it ends with selling caffeinated goat juice. And she did some shit that was about him selling guinea pigs.
Dave's Koi. Yeah.
Dave's Koi.
Pet store to
You
table.
gotta get your ass to Texas for one of these, John. I mean, really. It's time. It's time. You can leave for a few days. It'll be okay. It won't blow up and go away.
He's not convinced. I can tell.
I
by
know.
the
I can see it in his
your
eyes.
smile on his face.
He looks like my grandson when I tell him he has to do an extra project. And he's like, he's saying he's going to do it, but you know he's not. It's the exact same look. It's this like weird smirk and like a little bit of fidgeting. And you're like, he's not going to do it.
He's not going to do it. Well, he's not telling you he's going to do it and then not doing it. Though.
I know. Well, he's
strong.
much older than Braylon, so he's learned not to commit and just sit there. But he can't get rid of the fidget and the smile. So how do we get John Willis to 9 Mile Farm, Nicole? How do we do that?
If I was going out of state, I would go there.
That's not a commitment to anything.
It is not. It is not.
Yeah, this is what my grandson's going to turn into, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Nope, not at all.
You should totally come on down, man.
Man, I just my stuff doesn't run when I'm not here. Every day I'm out, it's 3 days to catch up. No matter who's in place, that's just how it is right now.
You need a David has a Toby. You need a Toby.
He needs a mini me.
Yeah, he needs somebody that's just like you. This is when I used to run construction crews. I had a number 2 that was such a fucking slave driver that, as tough as I was, when I went on vacation and came back, my guys were like, "Thank God you're back. He almost killed us yesterday. He worked us until we thought we were going to die, and then he told us we weren't done yet." I'm like, "Good job, Daryl. Good job, bro."
Okay. Hey, Alabama wants to know: would wood pellets make good soil amendment to help hold moisture?
Don't know.
What's the binder in those?
It's like cellulose. It's
okay.
I asked Triple when he was doing it. He's like, it's cellulose. It's basically like liquid that they make out of the same wood or some shit.
So to somebody who doesn't know me, when we buy rabbit pellets, what's that binder? And I've been seeing a ton of stuff, direct marketing on these. You can buy a machine for a couple $100 that you just put all of your basically leaves and shit in, and they put a couple eggs in there, and it seems like the egg is the binder in some of those pellets.
It could be. Like where I get my pellets for my ducks from, it's a custom order. We buy like a ton at a time, and they will not call it soy free because they use a tablespoon of soy oil per 50-gallon bag is their ratio to help. I don't know if it's so much binding. It's more like part of the process, but they have a big commercial machine. You're talking about a pelletizer.
Yep.
And there's also a thing called the hammer mill.
Yep.
And there's a company that makes it at like a price that a homesteader can afford. It's not cheap, but it's affordable.
They have them on Vinegar.
Just be careful if I'm trying to think this other company. Be careful if you get on their mail list. Like they put you on like 87 mail lists, and you're getting hammer and pelletizer freaking emails. And you're like unsubscribe, and like then you get pissed. You're like unsubscribe, or you're on all, and like you can't find, like you can't get away. And now it really has me wanting one, but I don't grow enough fodder because that's what Nick turned me onto those. He's like, you can take the fodder trees and take the fodder, put it through the hammer mill and pelletizer, and you could pelletize the fodder.
Yep.
And I grow the crap out of the water hyacinth, and I'm like, I could be making my own pellet feed with that, but I don't need another thing to do.
Yeah, you do. Come on, Jack. All you need to do is one more thing. That's what you should do.
When you start looking at hammer mills, most of them are coming out of Africa. There's a ton of them in Africa. And if you're not on those lists, there's some agriculture groups based out of Africa that have private groups in Facebook. And man, the stuff they're doing is incredible. And it's so raw, like it's totally duplicatable here, a lot of it.
Yeah, Rachel's got it. Don't forget to slap that like it owes money, man. Doesn't cost you anything, and it brings us benefit.
Obey Rachel and obey Ika Mouse.
Yeah, Ika Mouse isn't here, but
she'll be here.
Ika Mouse, where have you been?
She was here yesterday. I don't know. She's been in and out lately.
Yeah,
I've modified it so we give Rachel credit for beating people up.
Okay, let's see. What do you think of growing bamboo to sell and eat as a visual barrier? Have you ever grown bamboo? John's got this one.
So there's running bamboo and there's clumping bamboo. And you'll hear all kinds of things about if you let bamboo go, you'll never get rid of it. You can chemically kill it, glyphosate, you can mow it, you can you can burn it. There's a lot of things you can do with it. William Bond said put clumping bamboo on the dam here to hold the dam in place. I started looking at bamboo. There are 3 large bamboo farms right outside of Nashville. When you start looking at bamboo, there's bamboo that does 1 inch and there's bamboo that gets 6 inch. There's bamboo that gets 20 feet. There's bamboo that gets 60 feet. There's bamboo that dies out as soon as it gets cold. And there's bamboo that'll go straight through ice. So if you want bamboo, there is several types of bamboo that will grow almost anywhere you are. It is invasive. People do lose their shit over it. Like, it's a great barrier, though. It'll grow super fast. If you've got a property and some neighbor comes in and cut all that barrier down, if you put bamboo in, it'll do it quickly.
And what I'll throw in on that, I don't know what variety it was, but when I was a kid growing up in Jacksonville, Florida, where everything grows like crazy, right? And it just goes nuts. They have like an 11-month growing season. Maybe 1 month out of the year, you get a couple of freeze days. We had these huge clumps of it that grew wild in the woods we used to play in. And we used to go cut like cane poles out of it and stuff. And they weren't the big ones. They would get biggest to be about 1 inch in diameter. And it's by itself in the woods growing in a clump. And that clump would just barely expand every year. It didn't do like the runners, like he's saying, they will like, the bad thing about runner is it will, like, if you live in the burbs or whatever, it'll go under the fence and start popping up in your neighbor's yard and they get pissed off and all. But clumping's no big deal. And it's a grass. No matter how tall it gets, it's a grass. It generally grows 2 to 3 inches deep as its root system. It may go as deep as 6 when it gets a very large variety. So it's really easy to wall it off. Like if you take like heavy weed blocker or not weed blocker, like pond liner material, cut a trench a couple feet deep and line that trench with that and backfill it and plant compost there. It's not going anywhere. And like John said, you can mow it. Like when it first comes up, it's little pieces.
Soft.
And if you keep an area mowed, it's not going anywhere. So if you plant it against a fence, leave a mow area. And by the way, I've learned that the hard way. Like anything you plant near your fence line, do not plant it against your fence line. Leave enough room for whatever you mow with to fit between the thing and the fence.
Yeah, and it'll grow, like some of that stuff grows so thick you can't walk through it, and
No.
you can use it as piping. You can knock those membranes out with a piece of rebar,
Yep.
and you can use it to move water with and stuff.
Yep.
You can fire harden it. You can use it to feed to animals. Plus, you could get a panda bear.
Yep.
I once wove some into a shower curtain for my outdoor shower.
You can cut a piece on each side of the thing and throw it in the fire and run away and wait. That's cool. I suggest backing off quite a bit if you try that, and having a hose to put out fire if it spreads coals, because it's.
Now, this one's a really important question, Jack.
Okay.
Where do I find your biochar course? I have some money I'd like to give you.
I mean, I've been hiding it. It's impossible to find. You know, it's at homefoodsystems.com.
Homefoodsystems.com.
Just go there and you'll be able to figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, you probably shouldn't take the course.
I mean, I'm laughing because I literally kind of had to ask that question because I forgot that I bought the course and then I couldn't find any reference to it.
Get on my daily mail.
I'm on your daily mail.
Daily mail every day for the last 40 days. Well, every weekday, because the daily mail's only weekday mails.
Yeah, important to know.
She just ignores my shit and then says I don't tell her. That's what it is.
Yeah, I just break your stuff.
On that, I did give Billy Bond, who is like a compost, master, the course for free, and he took he didn't want to say who made it, but you can figure it out. He took like a $4,500 course that was very long, in-depth, intellectual course. And he said I covered all of the pertinent information in the first 10 hours of that course in my first hour of mine. I thought that was a pretty good accolade. So it's probably worth the $40 it costs, guys.
Yep. Dean Mullis asked, what kind for North Carolina of bamboo? If you get on your marketplace in your local area there, you'll find guys that have chopped down bamboo, and you will find guys that'll let you come out and dig up bamboo. So I would communicate with those guys and see what's growing in your area. And typically when you get on and search bamboo for sale on Google, you'll find a farm in your area and they'll list which types they have.
But back to what you said earlier, well, what do you want it to do? Because just because you're in North Carolina, do you want a runner? Do you want a timber bamboo? Do you want a fishing pole bamboo? Do you want to be making small barriers, big? What do you want to do with it? And then find the adapted to your region bamboo that is that type of bamboo. Because some of the timber bamboo, if you can grow it, man, you talk about construction material. And one of the most renewable things on the planet, you cut it down, it's grass, it grows back.
Yep.
Do you either of you guys ever watch Mythbusters?
Yes.
Sometimes.
Used to.
Remember the old thing that we kind of all took as a myth, like the Asians would torture people by stringing them out over bamboo and letting the shoots grow through their body. And so they tested that. They made like this giant, ballistic gel with skeleton and all, and they did it, and it totally freaking worked. It grew right
straight through them,
right through it. And it took like 2 weeks, and it was coming out the top of the body. So
that's a pretty picture. Thanks, Jack.
So I'm just saying, there could come a time in the future where we need some deterrence from people being on our land, and I'm pretty deterred by that.
Yeah. You hear what they did to the last guy? It's really interesting that all of the questions are about animals and gardens this week or this month. Have you ever had botfly issues with rabbits?
Not that I'm aware of.
Only time I ever had them, they were on a dog, a little like a full-size Yorkie. They're actually about 20 pounds, and we had one. He got like 3 on his side. That's the only time I've ever even seen them.
Yeah, I've never seen them. I hope that saying that does not make them.
Yeah,
happen.
They're all just converging on the holler right now.
Nicole said.
Them and squash vine borers, they're all just on their way.
Oh no, I've got those for sure. Although last year I planted like 20 zucchini, and I got enough zucchini for about an 8-week period of time to actually keep up with what we would eat. Yeah, no extra. And that came off 3 plants that survived the 20 plant planting.
Yeah.
So
they say that people that grow it commercially have no problems with them, because if you plant enough of it, there's not as many of them as you think. And since we all plant like 2 or 3 plants, all of them go to those 2 or 3 plants. I think they are scum and they need to die, and I'm not sure how to make that happen.
What I thought Steven Reisner said something you could do about those at your workshop.
He did, but it's missing a point, and that is that. So what he's doing, and this is very, very interesting to me, he's basically making something called IPMO, where you're taking insect parts and insect frost, or if you don't have insect frost, you use like this stuff called chitin or crab shell or whatever, and you're growing a fungus. And what that fungus is, it's a specific fungus that eats exoskeletons.
Mm.
And so then you spray, it's a contact killer. Well, the problem with that is the vine borer is inside the plant. So unless it's somehow able to penetrate the vine and get into the vine, and then my other question is, does the vine borer have an exoskeleton when it's in its larval form? Because what it's doing is it's destroying the exoskeleton. And then because of that little factoid, I picked up on something yesterday. I'm building all this stuff for the cover crop course. I was listening to this guy that is using a chitin. Have you ever heard of chitin as a soil amendment? And it comes from shellfish. And the only reason I even knew what it was when he said it is years and years ago, there was this health craze where people were taking capsules of it because it absorbs fat in your system and it reduces, like, so you eat more food, but you get less calories.
Chitosan.
Yeah. Chitosan, chitin, whatever. Right.
Yep.
So he was talking about, and I thought originally when he said he was using a soil amendment, it was some sort of tilth or something it was doing. Well, I re-listened to the thing yesterday while I was doing a project, and he said something about it reducing fungus and fungal damage and some other things about pests. And I'm like, I wonder if just putting it out there is creating that fungus that Steven is cultivating that's actually destroying and it was also like helping to break down the corn stover. Because like if you do no-till with corn, if you don't have enough fungal activity yet in your soil, you end up with a residue problem. So I'm wondering if there's some connection there, but I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, that dude's smart.
He's smart, but he also is a little Stephen Harris in him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's my interview tomorrow too.
Oh, you're interviewing again. I just listened to the one you did in January.
Yeah, he is. He's Nick Ferguson. I said when we sat on a panel with him, like the guy opens his mouth for 5 minutes and we both feel like idiots. We feel like we don't know anything.
What I love about how he talks is he talks kind of fast.
Yeah.
And it's very densely populated.
Yeah.
And it's just like stream of consciousness off the top of his head.
And like none of the words
like that all the time.
And none of the words are useless.
Yeah, no.
But
he does make it understandable to normal people. So we should see if we can get him on here, John. I wonder how John and Steven would get along.
Probably fine. It seems like the Harris comment, I don't even know anything about it other than he's pissed some people off in my Telegram. And it seems like it's all political shit. It has nothing to do with gardening and stuff from what my wife said. I don't run my Telegram group. I just tell people when you join my Telegram group, we have moderators, do what they say. Because if they get rid of you and you come to me, I'm going to say, I'm sorry. I don't even think, like, you don't give somebody a job and then question how they do it unless they're really screwing it up. Yep. No, Harris is not back. Liberty Garden. No. That's never happening. Never, ever, never happening.
Okay. Did one of you do a video on raising worms? I'll look for it if you did. I have not.
I didn't.
No, I murder worms.
I don't really do videos on things. I just do videos where we talk about 1,000 different things.
Or your morning videos where you yell at everybody. Those are my favorite. They're like 30 seconds long. Get up, you fucker, get to work.
I'm not really yelling. I mean, people are just so sensitive that they take it that way. But like,
you say you're not yelling. This is my impression. Motherfuckers, 4:30. You aren't here. You're in bed. You're watching this at 10:30 and you just got out of bed and you're talking about how you can't get shit done, but you're in bed and I'm the fuck up and I'm working. Get your ass to work. Sleep faster.
That's right. Sleep faster. I also went to bed at 12 midnight.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. No, like I don't make videos like on worm bins or how to raise rabbits or anything. I just walk around with a camera while I'm doing all those things, but there's no real catalog to those videos. So if you watch the compound videos, there's a ton of knowledge in there and a ton of evidence of what I've done. There's just no way to, like, we can't title what that video is about because it's about 20 different things. And there's 100 of those.
Yeah. You're doing 20 different things every day or at a time. That's why.
Yeah. If we broke all our content into 10 different YouTube channels, all 10 of those YouTube channels would be much bigger than the one YouTube channel that we currently have.
Yeah. Well, we've just started a project, Don Gorham and I, where we're recording cooking videos, and
Yep.
it takes a lot more planning than you think for us to stay on track with the thing. Like we had to be like, okay, we're going in and we're just doing this.
Yeah,
Because
no
once
doubt.
you get going in the kitchen, it's the same thing. It's like, well, oh, and while I'm at it, I'm drying this or I'm processing that or I'm fermenting that, because in the in-between times you do stuff.
Yeah, for every 10 minutes of video you see, for a really good 10-minute video, you've got 10 hours of prep before that, or 10 hours of actual, work.
Yeah, somebody says people think John sounds angry. To me, as the voice of an angel, I don't think I've ever seen you actually furious.
No,
The whole time I've never seen you mad or heard you sound mad to me.
no.
But I can understand, like, when you need to get somebody's attention, you get their attention.
People are just calibrated very low. They're just very sensitive. I mean, most people you come in contact, well, not us, right? When we shake a man's hand, typically he's going to have calluses, but most of the world does not.
No, they don't. And
It's worse if you're a woman, because they're really not used to you just answering or saying something specific and direct.
I say it all the time. I'm like, what do you want me to get out of this? Right? You've given me 20 sentences and I still don't know what. Just tell me the thing. Like, get to the point.
What is your question?
That's why I don't talk on the phone. Like, just message me so that I can answer you in as few words as possible.
Exactly. You're looking for an answer. I want to give you one, but I don't have time for your life story for this answer.
Yeah.
It is basically, what do I feed my chicken or whatever, right? So I used to say this about one of my friends. He was like, he was going to tell you a story about like what happened last night at the club, and he wasn't this bad, but I would mock him and I'd be like, in the beginning, good and evil were separated by the light. I mean, that's like how his story started.
Yeah.
Like, oh dear God, Brad, will you just say what you want to say? Like, holy crap. You have to understand the background. No, I don't have to understand the background. I really don't.
Yeah, we'll have people come in here that'll work here for a while, and finally I'll just pull them aside. I'm like, look, before you do this next time, you need to ask yourself, do I need to know what you're about to tell me? Does it affect me in my position when I pay you? Does this have anything to do with what we're doing? And if the answer is no, then I don't need to know about it. Like,
yeah,
I pay you to be here. If you show up on the weekend for free, that's when we can have that conversation. You know who's not here on the weekend? You're not here on the weekend.
Yep.
You were here. Well, I just want, I want to have this relationship, or I thought it would be better. No, but you're only here when I pay you. When I cease to pay you, you stop showing up.
Yeah.
So give me the information I need.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to, when I was in the corporate world and we'd have a meeting and it started to go sideways, I would just not say a word. I would just get up to the whiteboard and I would write on the whiteboard, does this affect revenue? ! And I would stand there like this until everybody shut up. Because if we're talking about something that does not affect the revenue of the company that we're having a meeting for, it doesn't need to be on this time where, when you do a meeting like that too, you have like the lowest paid person in that room might be making $75,000 a year and the highest paid might be making $250,000. You're taking all this expensive group and you're putting them in stasis for 45 minutes for your bullshit. No. Yeah. And I feel like that from the minor thing, like you're not one person bugging you, all the way up to the top of the chain. There's no place for that. I bet if that person clocked out, I'm done for the day, it's 6:00 at night, and they stayed after and wanted to talk to you, if you weren't doing something, you'd have that conversation then.
Yeah.
You're not paying them. I'm not paying you to ask me questions.
Yeah. I want to come hang out with you. I don't hang out, and you can't keep up with me while I work to have a conversation. The only time you'll ever see me hang out is the day before an event, right? When you have the VIP guys come in or you have a pre-class come in, we sit around for a couple hours and bullshit. That's the only time I hang out. Like, you won't ever see me with a drink in my hand. Like, you'll never see me out having alcohol in public. It's just not there. That's the time I hang out. If you want to hang out, you got to show up someplace pre-event. That's when we have a couple of hours to hang out.
So early bird tickets are available at selfreliancefestival.com, and you can come to the Compound Pound. It's April 6th and 7th. Friday before, we've got actually a number of really cool classes. We've got a homestead medical class. We've got Fight Like a Girl, which is a self-defense class. I've even got an herbal class now that's going to go right after Fight Like a Girl for 2 hours from an herbalist out of Nashville. And then Monday after the event, Carrie Brown's doing a 4 or 5 hour wild edible class on the property.
Yep.
So that's all over at selfreliancefestival.com, just in case you want to hang out with John Willis. That's the way to do it.
Well, I tell guys it's worth, even if you don't want to take the class, it's worth buying the class to get access a day early. Not for John Willis. All the other presenters are here. Like you have access to dudes that, like, some of these guys cost $7,000 to have some of these people on target, you know, and you have access to have a conversation with these guys when nobody's there.
Yeah, and the VIP pass this time, what we're doing is having speakers speak. 15 minutes later, they're in a different place where VIP access is, so you can get more questions in. Yep. Like that's part of the speaking arrangement now, and that's always been the intention. Our friend Bob just helped me formalize that in words, so he's been super helpful.
And mentioning Kerry Brown, I've got a video going live with Kerry today that we filmed a couple months ago. He was out here and planted, I think he planted 37 trees. And then he was here this week and we filmed a podcast that I think is about 90 minutes that'll go live pretty soon. And both of those are great videos.
Yeah, Kerry is a smart dude. Very. And he also put gooseberry on your property, just FYI.
Yeah, I saw that.
I said that in the comments. It's funny. I framed this as we're going to talk about current events, and the current events we've talked about is how to make your garden better. So here's another question. Do you guys have any certain type of soil amendments for garden beds?
Rabbit manure.
Compost.
Yeah, I don't have anything I need to add to that. I am going to start
cover crops.
I realized listening to your interview with Steven last month that the way that I have used as a foliar spray, I can put in higher amounts in my soil when I'm making cheese. So I'll probably I'm going to start doing that this year more.
Using a lab.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, I'm going to take the whey from my cheese.
That's your lab. That's your lab.
Yeah, that's my lab. Exactly. So I hadn't thought about that. I'd always used it on tomatoes to help deter blight, which it's kind of okay at. Like aspirin is way better.
Yeah.
But I can just put it straight in the ground and I generate a fair amount of whey. So it was just one of those it was one of those things. Jeff's asking what the Mega Pass is not up yet, but it will be up. And the Mega Pass, you get to choose which Friday class and you get SRF and then you get the Monday class. So that's what that is all about. I do have a question into the instructor for the Fight Like a Girl class because I've had a couple guys who want to take it too, which sounds funny, but the strategies he's teaching, I could see it.
I'm thinking it works,
totally
but I also
fitting.
think that you set it up for a particular group of people and maybe they need their own thing.
I'm not doing that to protect their feelings. So
I know it's not about feelings. It's just like you set it up for that group of people, and maybe that group of people is very comfortable taking it because it's for them.
Yeah, could be.
That's what I'm just saying. And like, if I come, I'll just hit them, and then they can learn how to get hit. Just once. Anyway, in the stomach. Jeff says, ballpark, how long before my biochar class? So the next class will be the cover crop class, and then the biochar class. But I will tell you, if you go to the survivalpodcast.com/biochar, you can find enough information to start making biochar tomorrow morning if you want to do it, right? But I am going to put it through the same process, and it's going to be more complex. But the reason I'm putting it last in that trifecta of the first core classes is I already have so much information available on it. And the 2-hour podcast I did on it that I did PowerPoint with and all, if you can't make biochar after that, you don't want to make biochar. It's not that difficult. But when I do it, I am going to gear it 100% like the compost for the backyard, small producer type thing. We're not going to be doing like retort kilns and stuff. It's going to be like open kilns only, real simple, but that's going to be the third class. So it may probably, I mean, I've got to do the cover crop one also is going to take a lot more work for me. Because even though I've been doing it, the academic stuff behind it, framing it to where I can explain it, it's taking a lot more research where I already did that with the biochar. So since it's the harder one, I make myself do the things that are harder first because then it's downhill for the rest of the year type of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I've seen your biochar presentations. I've seen classes. I've listened to that podcast. You can get everything you know out of it right now. I can also see the value of taking a course if you want to speed that up.
If you want to take it to another level. And like I've said lately, like I was really, like, I don't hate money, obviously, but I've been hesitant to do courses because I'm like, I give away all the information. But now, having built them and consolidating them and putting them through a process, I'm like, okay, I get what people get out of it. The way I explain it is like, when I used to do fiber optic work, you would take this little glass thing and put it in a ceramic connector, and you epoxy it or you UV cure it, and then you cut it off with a diamond cutter, and then you had to polish it in this figure 8 motion. That after all these years, I haven't done this in 28 years, and I can still do it exactly because I have that muscle memory. And you train somebody, and they were 20 minutes on one connector, and you should be able to do it in like 60 seconds. And it would take them 20 minutes to still be shit. And you grab it from them and just, there you go, look at it in the microscope. And what you didn't realize, like, this person wasn't dumb. They just didn't do it before. And you had developed all these little tiny movements in your hand, this minutia that you didn't even know you were doing, that you just developed by, sitting in a telecom closet for 8 hours a day for weeks. You get into that mode. And so it's not exactly the same, but that's kind of my analogy, that there's a lot of things that I do that maybe just fly over somebody in a podcast, or I forget it, I leave it out, where when you could force yourself to build a syllabus and then teach to the syllabus, it all gets presented and it all gets included, and then it all gets tested. And I've built my exams to reinforce the learning so that the person knows the takeaways they should have had. And by going through that process, it's not about passing, it's about reinforcing learning. And it's worked out really well, and I should have done it 10 years ago.
But now you know.
But now I know.
Ask you how you know.
And how I know 3 aspirins in a hole, because James White. So whenever I put tomatoes out, I put 3 aspirins in the hole, and I stick an aspirin in there like a fertilizer tablet like once a month.
I mean, not to derail it, but I put 2 aspirin in the hole and it still worked.
There you go.
Won't Tums do the same thing? It doesn't have to be aspirin, right? Tums will do it.
I'm not sure about that because it's not a calcium thing.
Yeah. So
that's blossom end rot.
Yeah.
This is blight.
Got it.
And no one's really, it's like throwing a barley straw into a pond and it gets rid of the algae. Nobody's really quite exactly sure the mechanism, but it works.
I do my seedling starts with aspirin in the water.
Oh, in the water?
Because I do, like I water with sort of an aspirin-y water.
Okay.
Copper rod in your water will take care of the algae also. I haven't tried it. I've seen a lot of short form content. And back
I have a very green fish tank right now that I've been fighting. I'm going to stick a copper rod in there and see if it works.
Yeah, see if that does. Guy asking about top dressing or fertilizing raised beds. I also water my raised beds out of my aquaponics system. I've got a submersible pump with a garden hose, and that's what I water whenever I water. So it's getting the nutrients out of the aquaponics system also.
And his stuff looks good.
On the copper, is it like leave the rod like in the water and out of the water, or completely submerge the rod?
I just saw him taking like any piece of copper, like chunk of copper, and just putting it in the tank.
So it's all the way submerged. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I didn't know if there was some sort of energy transfer.
Yeah.
Voodoo. It actually makes me feel more likely that it will work.
There's a ton of content where they're wrapping copper wire around dowels and pushing it halfway in, halfway out of the raised beds too.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't tried it. Every time somebody sends it to me, I say, have you done this yourself? My buddy Lance does it, and he had some beds side by side with the exact same stuff planted at the same time, and he swears that it works.
I think Carrie may have tried it too. We should ask him that question. Or he at least talked about trying it at one point. So, okay, you guys got anything for tobacco leaf moth on tomatoes? No, I don't.
Mm-mm.
Stephen Ryder's IPMO.
Yeah.
Cali on clay. So you mix Cali on clay with water, and anything that's having itself munched, it's like a very thin slurry, and you spray it with just a regular sprayer, and it'll leave like this white coating on it, almost like you like loosely whitewashed it. And then any kind of insect that feeds on that, when they bite into it, they're like, think of like, if you've ever gotten some really dry, like what was the thing you used to try to get people to eat and it would dry their mouth out, like a pile of saltines, or I don't know, half a pound of paprika or something you used to get your buddy to try to, it does that. It just, it clogs up their mandibles and all, and they hate it. So they stop eating it because you've ruined it for them. It's like a steak's delicious, but if you poured putrid stink on it, you wouldn't want to eat it.
Yeah, I know. I like various different kinds of caterpillars. I just pull them off.
That's great. Yeah. And the caterpillar thing, if you go out there at night with a bright light, man, they're pretty easy to pull off. And then the Japanese beetles, I go out just from blueberry to blueberry to blueberry, or when they're on and they seem to go back and forth between peach trees one year, blueberries another. But I just have literally a dust buster. Now I use
you suck them off?
Yeah, man, and it works so easy because if you try to crush them, I used to crush them in place. As soon as you vibrate that bush, though, they all fly off. Whereas when you have that high-powered vacuum like a DeWalt or a Milwaukee, it just sucks them right out of there.
Yeah. I'm guessing he's really actually concerned about the hornworms.
Yeah.
Super easy at night.
The moth doesn't do anything, right? So what I do with them when I see them, and like he's right, if you shine a light on them, they show up at night and they come out at night. I just take a really sharp knife and I just draw it across their back and let them like bleed out. And I figure, and I don't do that just to be a dick. I do that because I figure anything that might feed on them, that would weaken them and increase the population of something that would feed on them. And they bleed like this green Vulcan blood, man. It's great.
Don't they show up under a black light?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a black light for that purpose. I had last year, I was like, great, no hornworms this year. And then I went away for 3 days and I came back and I was like, oh, there they are. And it took probably every other day for about a week of just picking them and they were gone. And then anyone I see that has the wasp eggs laid in it, I leave them there because they get like the red wasp will lay eggs in them and then more of them come and that's their predator. So the worst year I ever had, I was pulling them off even if that was the case. And I really actually just want those wasps around, even though I hate wasps.
I actually think it's the little bitty wasp.
Oh, is it?
That lays where you see them like and they have like all the eggs in their back and shit. Like I think that's them. I think red wasps will probably just stab them and murder them and take them away. They're awesome too. Mr. Greg is saying biofenthin insecticide is approved for crops if applied 6 weeks before the harvest. I'm not going to get too hard on that pesticide because I'm not familiar with it, but I don't use any pesticides. And, you know, like the IPMO is actually targeting the exoskeleton with a fungus that's natural. So that I'm okay with. Anything that's an insecticide that we spray an insect with, even if it's organic, what it tends to do is attack the nervous system. And I don't care how long it's been on there. You're spraying it, you're breathing it. I don't believe that humans really need to be jacking around with anything that screws up central nervous systems. Now, maybe that particular pesticide is some sort of more benevolent or whatever. But if you need 6 weeks for it to be safe, I'm not using it.
Yeah. Somebody says hornworms make good chicken food. Ducks also love them and will fight over them. And that's a fun game.
They sell them at the pet store for certain reptiles to eat.
Oh yeah, hugely. Yeah, bearded dragons. A lot of guys use them.
But
they're expensive.
I mean, take this with a grain of salt because it's, you know, the person educated at like PetSmart College. They go to PetSmart Fish College and PetSmart, you know, Dog College and all. I think the whole program's like a day. And but they told me that they grow those hornworms that they sell for reptiles without them ever eating tobacco or any other nightshade because it's toxic to the reptile if it's inside them. I don't know if it's true. That's what the little chippy that was getting my feeder goldfish for me told me when I saw they're selling them. And they do feed them something different because they're not the same color green. They're a different color when you buy them.
Yep.
Okay. Any thoughts on the European farmers' revolt?
I think it's awesome. I question how real it is, right? We see this sliver. I saw a picture yesterday of round hay bales stacked up and you see through the sliver, you see the Eiffel Tower. Like, are they really doing? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I hope so.
But when I see a truck back up a tank to like the Parliament House and they spray cow shit all over the Parliament House, I kind of dig that.
Yeah, but the Parliament's not there. It's not hindering anything.
It's not. It's like those idiots that are throwing the paint on like the paintings at the Louvre and shit.
The Mona Lisa.
Covered in freaking plexiglass.
Yeah.
Tomato soup.
Yeah, it's covered in plexiglass. The best part about those people, though, is then they super glue themselves to the floor and shit. I would just be like, okay, stay there.
Yep.
I mean, that's the solution to that. You know what? Let's come on. You're not done yet. You got another hand.
Imagine
bitch. Like,
imagine Imagine if you dropped a cage over those Looney Tunes and left those motherfuckers there for 90 days as though they're just in their jail cage where they glued themselves. How many more people would come just to see the animals in the cage?
Yes. It's modern art, baby. Modern art meets the Renaissance. Come see our hippies in a cage.
Yep.
Super glued to the floor. How long? And that's when you get out of the cage.
Yep.
When natural processes release your hand that you super glued to the floor, we'll let you out of the cage.
Yep.
But we also throw tomato juice on you.
We're not going to feed or water you. You glued yourself
No,
there.
you came in on you can eat the tomato juice. That's what you get. You get a bucket of tomato juice thrown on you every day. I bet it would stop really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they left people there, the only way out is rip all your skin off.
Because they're part of some organization that's connected to some other like WEF think tank bullshit, and they get bailed out like instantly.
Yeah.
Michael says, I've heard a lot of people say that they feed Japanese beetles to their chickens. Mine won't eat them. They look at them sideways. They will not touch them.
My
the
dog
only thing I've ever seen eat a Jap beetle is my grandfather used to make these little bird houses. And I don't know what the real name is. He called them a Jenny Wren. They were little tiny bird about this big. They were like a peanut. And they would grab them off the grapevines. And we had like a gravel driveway. And they would be down there. And you'd see them like doing this. And they'd like jump up off the ground and they like whip back down. And what they were doing, they would take them in their beak and they would throw them on the gravel. And it would once it broke their wings off, then they would eat like they were like us cracking a nut. And you'd go down there in the summer and like it looked like somebody put Nicole's goat glitter like everywhere. Like it was little shining glittery all in the driveway from just thousands of beetle wings. But have you guys ever had problems with them beyond like, I don't know if the grapes are acting as a trap crop or anything, but we barely had them touch anything on the property but the grapes.
So they're all over my frost grapes, which showed up 3 years ago, which has really removed them from the peaches and from the blueberries.
Okay.
I don't like to talk out loud about my Japanese beetle problems because I've been here 17 years.
Knock on wood.
3 to 5 years, that's when I had some issues.
Yeah.
I'm getting green beans and some other stuff. But since they established their balance, I see some sometimes, but they're not a big thing. I hope
and I think
that stays that way.
There is a place for like that diversity fixing things. Like one of the studies I read, this was long ago, and took a long time for them to figure out what was going on. They were examining organic vineyards in California. And it wasn't Japanese beetles. It was some kind of leaf hopper that screwed everything up. And of course they couldn't spray the leaf hoppers. So they started experimenting by planting blackberries around the vineyards. And the blackberry leafed out faster. So the predator came in sooner because the leaf hoppers came in sooner. So by the time the blackberries were done and the grapes were really like the predators just went there. And it seemed to play out, except they were finding like these weird organic vineyards where they were also not having the same pressure from the leaf hopper. And it turned out if there were a significant amount of blackberries within 2 miles of the vineyard, that the same effect happened. That's about how far whatever this predator was willing to move once it was done predating, and it was kind of like, oh, blackberry season is over. Now it's time to go to the vineyard. So 2 miles it was having an effect. So like what you've done and all the diversity you've put in on 3 acres, it's a huge thing.
Somebody asked about the lightning bugs. And now that he mentions that, we did used to have lightning bugs all through here, especially when I was working like on the skid steer and stuff in the evening. And now that you mention it, the last year or two, there are very, very few lightning bugs. And I don't know what the cause for that is.
And see, it's the opposite here. Like I've been living here since 1993 in this general area of Texas. We never had them. The last couple of years we've had them. And significant, like not like when I was growing up in Pennsylvania, like at twilight, they were like everywhere. But I mean, it's not like one here and one there. It's like right at twilight, you get a pretty good little light show. And then they always like these stories, that people write. They talk about like kids catching fireflies at midnight or nothing. I've never seen them out very late. It's like right at that transition. But we've had them, and I don't know if they've kind of migrated south or what. I mean,
when you crush them, they're like Kimlite juice. When they smash on your windshield,
we used to smash them on our foreheads when we were kids.
Yep.
Yeah, we got plenty of them here. I mean, every year some of them get into my house, and at night I'm like, oh, you are a lightning bug.
Have you ever had a ladybug invasion where you end up with like 5 million ladybugs in your house? And you're trying.
It's the Japanese beetles here. Yep. Yeah.
Suck them up with those vacuums.
In Arkansas.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have one. Kill them, and you're like, go, leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, suck them up with that shop vac, those little DeWalt or Milwaukee shop vacs. Yeah. You can catch them right out of the air. Same with like gypsy moth, pantry moths. You can suck them right up.
The bagworms, my grandma used to go out with a pole with a rag on it dipped in kerosene and just like burn them right out of the trees and shit. She was like a 4 foot 9 inch little stocky Ukrainian lady, and she'd be out there with like a 16-foot pole.
Yep. Yeah, June bugs are something different though. June bugs are the bigger orange bugs.
We have it in Austin. They have a June bug festival where they eat them.
They taste like almonds.
Okay.
We get box elder bugs here on the box elder trees.
You guys can eat Z bugs. I'm going to eat Z steak.
Yeah. I accidentally ate a stink bug the other day in my water.
What?
Yeah, I was like gulp, and I was like, oh.
How bad was it?
It was bad. It like, you know how they smell? That's how they taste.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like my dog ate one last week too, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, you don't like stink bugs, but she didn't like that stink bug enough to eat it.
Squash bugs must be bad too. I've never eaten one, but like I did get like chickens never eat them. And one day I had some young chickens, so I'm like, well, maybe if they've never seen it before, they'll eat it. So I had a leaf with like a bunch of them on it, and I threw it over the fence to them. And one looked at it and like, and the other one looked at it like, I'll give that a shot. And it ate it, and it made a bad sound, and it ran away, and it was making chicken noises, and you could almost hear it going, no. So they must burn or something.
The squash bugs, I crush them by hand, and like this turquoise goo comes out of them. If you smell it though, it smells like melon. It smells very, very sweet when you crush them.
That's because they're sucking cucurbit leaves all day long. That's what it is. What we do a lot of times is if you start looking early in the season, they will lay like these clusters of red eggs on your leaf. And if you take duct tape and just double side it, and it'll pull them right off.
So I pull that leaf off. When I'm watering the raised beds, I water heavy, and they come from underneath to the top, and then I crush them. And I'll do that a couple times a night.
They're evil, but they're not. They don't bother me that much. They just kind of ruin some leaves. Like it's the vine borers. They kill the whole friggin' plant.
If we plant early, we'll get plenty of crookneck squash or zucchini or whatever. As soon as they've destroyed some of that, the damage gets beyond where you can pull them off. I just pull those whole plants and put them in the dumpster.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I don't even put them to compost. I put them straight in the dumpster.
What I usually do with any of my squash is as soon as the damage begins, I'll plant something right next to it that they won't bother. And so as that plant's dying, something's already coming back, and then just cut it off and pitch it.
Cool. Yep.
But like the Trombochinos, they can kill it, but it takes a lot longer. It just takes them a lot longer. And as they grow those long vines, if you take where the vine is wounded and bury it, it'll root, and then that vine is clear of the damage behind it.
So we put 120 pumpkins out every year on the fence posts for decoration.
Oh yeah,
They go through the winter, they freeze. So all along the fence line, we will have pumpkins come up, and they do really well until those squash bugs get in there really heavy.
The
Furosas
plant, the loofah plant is also resistant, and you can eat the young ones as a zucchini-like thing.
All kinds of gourds are like that, and then Furosas butternuts they're pretty resistant, but they just don't do well here for me. But they have that thick, dense vine because they're a different species. There's like 4 main species of squash. I think it's mixta is the one that has those dense vines. I'm trying something new this year, Nicole, and if it works, I'll give you some root for it at the end of the fall. It's called ivy gourd, and it's like a perennial cucumber.
Oh,
and
cool.
if you pick it when it's green, it tastes like a cucumber, and if you let it keep ripening, it kind of turns reddish, and it starts getting more sweet like watermelon. but the root lives, and apparently if you mulch it, it'll live through your winter. Well, it'll live through my winter. We'll see about your winter. But you could always just dig it up and like bring in a few roots like you do with like Jerusalem artichokes, and keep them on wet paper towel in a bag in a chill drawer of the refrigerator, and replant them every year. And the guy I got them from, he sells the roots on eBay. They're like $20 because no one else has it because it's invasive or whatever bullshit they come up with, which means it's already there. So stop worrying about it. That's what it means. But he even eats the tips. So the new growth tips are supposed to be delicious too, either raw or stir fried. So that's my new trial plant for 2024. I have to have at least one new thing every year.
That sounds really cool.
And I can't remember what else they're called, but they're like perennial cucumbers, what some people call them. And they're real popular in like Asia, India, places like that, where like if you don't grow your food, you die. So it's probably worth growing.
Well, I need to figure out my vining layer in my food forest.
That might be good, but it might be invasive in that environment. I figure in a raised bed on a trellis, if it starts going somewhere, it gets mowed.
Yeah. If it's more invasive than the other natural vine that likes to take over here, then I have solved that one problem and replaced it with a different
brambles or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, we get this. I call it vinca, but it's not really vinca, but it's just a flowering vine that anywhere that the soil is disturbed, it shows up. And it tries to take over my garden too. So it's just something that's here. But it's actually not a bad ground cover. If you want to just have a ground cover that you don't have to mow, it does that, but nothing else is growing there.
I'm thinking this will do good here because we actually have a variety of wild ivy gourd that grows here. I didn't know that's what it was. But the ones that grow here native, they're not a good food plant. But they live in the hell that is my unirrigated property in the summer. And so if they can survive, I would think that this more palatable one hopefully will survive.
Yep. Here's a comment from early. You know you're assertive lady when you see men back up and protect their marbles on instinct.
Okay. Weird
the
flex.
Real men in my life don't do that when I say something direct. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's a lot that will. There's a lot that will. We need to help some people in this country, man. I don't know how they're going to make it. I really don't. And this is not just the old generation putting down the new one. Like there's just certain things you should be able to handle in your life, no matter what generation you're from, that people just can't handle. And I've gone from, 20 years ago making fun of them to now just really feeling bad for them. Like what screwed up shit in your life made you this way?
Yeah. There's a lot of programming there. I think I'm not sure it's the screwed up stuff. It's just there's programming that has been developing for tens of years, at least, probably longer than that.
I think it's a combination of the programming, which, by the way, guys, that's why they call it programming on television. That's why it's called programming. And so you've got the TV shit. But then the other thing is, like, when you remove adversity from a person's life from a very young age up until they're an adult, they have no concept of how to handle diversity. Like, why is this happening to me or whatever? Like, they can't deal with it. And, I talk to my grandkids about this all the time. And my grandson's now 13. So I had the whole conversation about, hey, you're a lot closer to 18 and 20 than you are to 0. So can you remember when you were 3? Well, you're now closer to being 20 than you were when you were 3. And we need to get you in this mode of where we're making you a little bit more adult-like every day so that you don't hit a point where you're 18, 20 years old and it's like, fly, bitch. And then you have no idea that you even have wings. Like you have to go through some adversity and you have to be kind of called up. That's part of parenting. And it used to be that families were closer together and there was a lot of that done by parents, but there was also a lot done by like uncles, great uncles, your dad's friends, like just seeing what a man is like. And we have so many young men, they grow up in absence of that male role model. And then the women, I think maybe they're surrounded by women, but they're growing up with women without men balancing them. And so they're completely out of balance as well. And they don't know what a man's supposed to be like because they haven't nobody model it for them. And I think those things together have just created this generation. They can't do anything without complaining. They can't do, man, I struggle when I talk about this because I know that that's how Gen X was talked about when we were young by the boomers. I get that. But this is not the same thing. We grew up as self-sufficient as any generation I think ever was. And I think it's our fault. I think not just three people, but our generation a little bit before us and a little bit after us, we so overcompensated for that, you know, we were there for every game or everything, and that kid never had to suffer. And I don't think you can become a whole person if you don't learn how to deal with adversity.
This is kind of a good time to talk about Homestead Apprentice, which is coming up soon. And they have the application up at homesteadapprentice.com, where you can apply to be part of this project. And if you get chosen to work on it, you're going to be learning all of these hard, tangible skills. And one thing that we have done a poor job of in our society is equipping people, and men in particular, with hard, tangible skills.
Well, we used to give kids hammers for Christmas and a bag of nails, and they can't swing a hammer. They don't have any calluses. They've never bled from their fingertips. They don't know how to use a shovel. Like, we used to go out and dig tunnels and caves, and the first thing you're going to tell a kid now is you can't do that, right? Because their parents didn't do it. And there is no hardship. Everything is handled for you. If you took a kid and gave him his first job and gave him a sledgehammer, a wheelbarrow, and a pickaxe and said, bust up this concrete, we'll come back in 8 hours and get you, the police would be called for neglecting that child, right? We would have to have a trailer out there with a water tank and air conditioning and all kinds of nonsense. That was my job when I was 13 and a half. I did that until I was 16 years old. And there is nothing like that anymore. Kids have this idea now, and it's because of this, right? We don't raise our children. This raises our children. We send our kids to be raised by people who hate our way of life. And most of their teachers were, in fact, raised in the same manner. So then we wonder why our kids are weak. There is no calluses. There is no pressure testing. There is no fear. There's been no repercussion for action. Somebody said they've never been punched in the face. Not only have they not been punched in the face, they can run their mouth, and then they are protected for running their mouth. They've never been pushed playing tag. They've never been hit with a dodgeball. They don't know any kind of stress at all. And it just does not exist any longer. And when kids get caught even playing cowboys and Indians, or God forbid, BB guns or paintball guns anymore, you know, law enforcement will be called. And that's just more. And you don't see that as much in kids that live in the country and small towns. But it is encroaching. It's definitely getting here. And with Homestead Apprentice, we are taking a bunch of young men and older people, right? We don't have an age limit on it. If you want to attend Homestead Apprentice, put in your application. You got to make a short video and tell us why you want to be involved in it. We're going to bring 50 or 60 people out here, and we're going to whittle that down to 2 10-man teams, and you'll be here for several weeks. And we're going to do homestead stuff, but we're also going to do lifestyle stuff, and we're going to do business and media development and business development. And it's a lot of aspects, because we talk all the time about, people always say money's not everything. And I like to say, well, then why do you go to a place you hate and get up at a time that you don't want to get up, and go to a place every day that you don't want to be for a finite amount of money? So when you have that money left over after you pay your bills and your responsibilities, what do you spend that money on? That thing that you love to do, that you accumulate that money in order to be able to do it. How do we identify that and take that and turn that into a business, right? How do we take the thing that you love to do? People are like, man, don't you get tired of working? I don't. I work 16 hours a day. Like, that's a no bullshit answer. Like, actually 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like, even when I'm out running around, I am working in some capacity. There is not a meal that's had anywhere at any table where there are not several of us discussing different aspects of business and multiple businesses at the same time, because that's what I love to do. And I don't consider that work. I've done this. I started this company 35 years ago. Even when I was in federal prison, you have a finite amount. You have 300 minutes of phone calls to make. Every one of those minutes was discussed on business and running a company while I was in federal prison. And how do we find that thing? And then how do we make that pay your bills? And that's what a lot of this is about.
I hear so many people complaining about not having opportunities. And this is literally, if you're like, I've been looking for an opportunity This is the opportunity smacking you in the face like a frozen salmon. Like
Not,
there is
not only,
nothing stopping you from filling out a stupid application and making a 60-second video about why you think you want to come.
yeah. What are
Nothing.
you worried?
Except for you.
What are
Is
you
it,
worried?
you said you're going to start with 60 and end up with 20? Is that how it's going to work?
Yeah, 2 10-man two 10
Okay.
10-person teams. Yeah. What are you worried
You're
about?
going to will the 60 down to 20. That's step
Yes.
one. And that's going to be by making them crawl across tacks, or
No, it's not like Hell Week. It's just
Okay.
it's just getting them together. Half of them
Okay.
won't show up. I mean, that's what always
Yeah.
happens. Why are you
Yeah.
not putting your application in? Are you worried we might select you? Like, what do you really? Everybody says you'll see it every morning in my videos, right? I want to do this thing. No, you don't. That's the first thing. Hey, I'm thinking about starting this business. Let me just stop you right there. You're not going to fucking start the business, because if you were going to start it, you would have started it. Hey, I have this business. Oh, how much money did you make this week? What? I haven't made any money. Well, then you don't have a business. It's just, that's the deal, right? Everybody wants to insert themselves into a conversation, but they don't want to put any skin in that game. So I like to whittle those guys out right away. I love it when I tell a guy, you're full of shit, you won't do that, and then they actually do it. Like, I like that more than anything. And I do that because it's going to do one of two things. You're going to remove your bullshit from the people actually doing stuff, or it's going to spur that guy and he's going to go, oh, I'll show you. And then they actually execute.
Yeah. Here's a Gen X riddle for the two of you.
okay.
You have 4 2x4s, a piece of plywood, a bicycle, and your buddies over. What are you doing this afternoon?
Building a
Jumps.
ramp.
Yeah, over 55-gallon drums.
Yeah. Will you just line up people on the other side of the ramp and just jump over them?
Absolutely. And I had friends that weren't very good on a bike, and they always wanted you to lay down too. I'm like, no. When you consistently cover enough distance that I don't have to worry about you like endoing on top of me, even on the first guy on the thing, I'll do it. But no, like, I had people I'd do it for and people I wouldn't.
So as a result of this, what do you know about placement of 2x4s and plywood to make a good jump?
The angle and the flex. So sometimes you want some flex and sometimes you don't want some flex, because flex increases the angle and throws the bike higher. And you have to determine whether you want to do that or not, depending on the total length of the plane that you're dealing with and how much reinforcement you give it.
Yep.
Has that served you well later in life, knowing that?
Yeah. And every single scar I have still on my body from when I was a teenager is totally worth that knowledge.
Yep.
Yeah.
We also, like, I lived in this apartment complex and we had these like islands that were like just big piles of dirt that they planted shit on and it all died. And so what we of course did is we took some of the dirt and then the little curb, we made it so you could actually not hit that curb. And then we would just with our feet like carve these trenches. And so you would hit this dirt pile and jump off the dirt pile. We did so much stupid shit. We had a 3-story building in our apartment complex, and we had all this. I don't advise anybody to do, by the way. We had all these railings that were made out of like 2x6s on the railing without a cap. And we used to like get up on those and like tightrope walk them. And if you fell to the far side, you're 3 stories down, you're dead. And, you know, somehow the cops never showed up and nobody ever fell. You know, and if somebody did fall, it's like all you have to do is just throw your body to the side without the 3-story drop, you know. But that used to be like a chicken test. Like if you couldn't do it, you couldn't hang out with us, like because you were too scared to go where we go.
And there's a lesson there, right? Because now in any situation, if you fall, you know how to direct your fall.
That's true.
That's actually a safety thing.
I'd rather fall in the briars than down the cliff.
Right.
Right. You know,
and you realize you have that split second to make that choice in a situation like that.
Yeah. And you might not win, but at least you tried before you went off the cliff, you know. At least you took the one shot you had. Like when we were in the military and they would teach us about getting caught in an ambush. First lesson, don't get caught in an ambush. Second, if you do, you have to like immediately violently charge the enemy with everything you have because you're 99% dead anyway. But if you try to retreat when you're caught in an L-shaped ambush, you're not retreating. There is no retreat. You have to take out the enemy, right? You have to do something.
I was thinking about Gen X and community, and we're actually pretty good at building the kinds of relationships that you can count on.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's generational because we were on our own. And if you got into some shit, you either had to take care of it yourself, or more often you called your buddies over and if you needed help, and you figured it out before your parents got home so they wouldn't realize that you got into some shit.
Yep.
And so you knew if you got the call, you were going to drop everything and go help your buddy.
Yeah.
And likewise, you knew you could count on your buddies. And I'm not sure that's how things work. I'm sure that isn't how things work anymore.
There was no
Have
problem.
you even thought about like all the movies that were made from like the 70s to the 90s that were always the kids on their own, on their bicycles and shit? And if they do make a movie like that now, it's never set in the now. It's like Stranger Things or something. It's always set like back in the 80s, because if you made it now, nobody would believe you.
And there's always some bullshit agenda now. It's
Yeah.
never. We were neglected, right? I saw something the other day said we were neglected, and somebody said we were free range.
Yeah, we were not neglected. I never felt neglected. I think back to my childhood and go, the idea that it could have been taken from me and I would have to have lived through it the way that people do now, like that's a nightmare thing for me. Like by the time I was 13, I was running a trap line. You know, I'd get up every morning. It was still dark out. I didn't make videos because they didn't have that yet. You weren't there. Sleep faster. I didn't do that. You know, I just went out and took care of my trap line. And but it was already happening, because what just flabbergasted me is listening to dudes when I was in basic complain about having to get up so early. Like, first of all, didn't you ever do this? And you're like, no. What did you think happened when you joined the Army? Did you think they were going to let us sleep until like noon? Well, at least on Saturdays. Like, so that was already transitioning. I just don't think it would have been that way if I was 20 years older. I don't think that would have been. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
How do we fix it though? I don't know. We do what we do, and those that want to do it too. I guess that's all we can do.
How do we fix it? We fix it generationally, right? You hear about the culture war, when the culture war really is, it starts with 3 generations. So we take our elderly and we warehouse them, right? We put them someplace. Yeah. Whereas if you have, let's say you have some property, and it doesn't have to be one house. It doesn't have to be one roof, right? It can be 1 acre of property with a house and then a tiny house or a grandma flat, right? So we keep our older people on the property with us, but you have to have that. You have to live in a manner right now so that can be in the future, in the next few years for you. And it's great if we can catch a 20-year-old kid and instill this, right? So if we can keep grandma and grandpa, or one or the other, both on the property, when you have kids, they can help raise your children. And then as you get older, you're going to have that in there. And then when your children have children, you're going to assist them. His story is history, right? History is his story. And if you want your story told in the manner you want it told, then you have to have those people around to pass that story on to. Whereas we take all of our people, we send our kids off property, and we send our kids to a group of people who hate our way of life, and then they get indoctrinated in that manner. Whereas if we take the responsibility of raising our children and raising our food and keeping those generations on the property, we have told everybody that the life dream is to have a 2,400 square foot house and 2.5 bathrooms, because that comes with 2.5 kids, and that comes with a tax base for the municipality that passed those laws. Whereas really all you need is some property. You don't have to have it under one roof. There's plenty of people, 6 people living in a trailer together, and then they get a shed, and then that shed becomes a living quarter, and then the next shed becomes a kitchen and a dining room. And then we build that out. And when you look at their lifestyle years later, their life is so much better, and it doesn't look like they're living in sheds anymore. They have this beautiful thing put together with outdoor living space, and they grow their food, and then it just goes from there. But it all starts with just doing something. You don't have to live the way the municipalities have programmed you to live. That's why they want a 2,500 square foot house, because it comes with a tax base.
The only reason I did lasers there is I couldn't remember how to do fireworks, because that was freaking fire.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was awesome. And it's
going to be a short.
I mean, you two guys, I grew up with a lot of interaction with great uncles, grandparents, and stuff like that. Did both of y'all do that?
Yes.
A large extended family on my dad's side. Yeah. Cousins, all of it.
But you were in my bigger point, because of what John said, is you were interacting with people that were your age, your parents' age, and your grandparents' age. You had that 3-generational thinking versus, so we were free range, but yet I think we had more interaction with adults than the current generation does. Like, everything's done for them. They're coddled. They're taken care of. Maybe daddy's at the game or whatever, but is daddy taking Joey fishing and talking to him about life events? Like, this morning, comes up, and I didn't plan this or anything. My grandson comes up to me and he's got his job to do. So I figure it's some other attempt to weasel out. And he's actually been really great lately. So I'm not expecting that. And I'm like, what's up, buddy? He goes, nothing. And that just means I came out to talk to you. That's what that means. That doesn't mean that I'm getting out of it. That's just, I came out and I don't know what to say, but I want to hang out. And I was like, and it's beautiful this morning. It was like 45 degrees. It's green. The sun's out. And I'm like, dude, this is the best time of the day. And I had to talk with him for about 5 minutes about nature being real and so much of what they look at being fake, and then walk away. And it wasn't a plan or anything. It's just like, when that gets peppered through your life, I remember, and sometimes it's harsh and sometimes it needs to be. I remember I was like 8 or 9 years old. My grandma had me cutting the grass and I ran over like some sort of wasps that were living in the ground. And I had no shirt on because it was summer and I'm pushing the mower. And one of the wasps comes up and just lands on my chest and stings me like right in the breastbone. And it swelled up like half an apple, and I killed it. And I run to my grandfather because I'm like 8. I'm like, he looks at it, he goes, fucking hurts, don't it? Go see your grandma. She'll take care of it. So I go to grandma. She dumps freaking Mercure comb on it. All it does is burn, right? And go back to the grass. And I'm kind of, you're pushing a lawnmower. But by the time you're done, you're not crying anymore. You said something I thought was really interesting, John, at the last SRF, that if you're using your body and you're using physical activity, whatever bullshit's in your head, it can't be in your head while you're doing that. It'll push it right out.
Yeah,
and that gives you clarity. And I think there's a place for that physical labor component too.
Yeah, physical, it builds mental clarity. Yeah, physical exertion. If you have a problem that you can't find the solution to, or your life is in shambles, the one thing you can do is fitness, and fitness is free. You can take a person and put them on a ship. You can lock him in a cage and he can still remain fit. And when you're fit, it clears up that mental clarity. Whatever that thing is, the answer will come to you. The solution will present itself through that physical movement.
And if it doesn't, at least you'll sleep well that night so your brain can reset.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Beth is on to something here in the chat. She says, mommy and daddy are in their smartphones, and that's the problem.
So are the children. You see babies on these things.
Yeah.
You used to go into a restaurant and you'd hear asshole kids where their parents, they'd be screaming and there'd be just food everywhere, right? You don't hear kids in restaurants anymore because they all have a smartphone now. Those kids are the future parents, and they are being programmed at age 1. You don't see kids in shopping carts anymore that don't have a full-blown damn iPad with them.
Well, I think her point, though, is we now have a generation of parents that are already there.
Yes.
They're already in their phones all the time, too. Like, I watched this video the other day. It was on TikTok or something, and this guy was talking about how intrusive these are. And he was like, when you go to dinner with somebody and you check the phone or whatever and do it, now you're going to sit down and talk to him. And you set that phone down even face down, but it's on the table. It's like disrespectful to the conversation because, it's still there. Like, put that shit away. Have your meal, have your social engagement. It'll be there when you get back. If it's some kind of emergency, you'll get called more than once. Like when I used to work in the corporate world and I would be out on client meetings and all, Dorothy and I had a deal. Like, if you call and it's just a talk and I'm dealing with some shit, I might not answer. But if you call twice in a row, I'll answer the phone. Because then I'll know. Or if you text me and it says 911 and I check it, I'll know. But you call me twice. That will tell me that I need to call you. Because now you and I are engaged with each other and I'm dicking off. And, people it might be important. No, you're checking your fucking fantasy football stats. I have a phone jail, a literal phone jail. I have a box with a hasp. And when we do our holiday parties and shit, your phone goes in fucking phone jail. Phone jail. You get your phone back when you leave. And because I know that's what everybody's doing. They're like whatever you did with fantasy football, you can't change it in the middle. I have a big part of my family that's all into that shit. It's whatever you've done you'll find out when we're done. Your phone goes in phone jail. You can't come in the house. And the first year I did it, everybody looked at me like I was kidding. I'm like, I'm not fucking kidding. I put all this effort so we could spend some time together for 2 fucking hours. Phone jail.
Did you say fantasy football?
Yeah, they love fantasy. And it's always, fall, and it's coming toward the playoffs at Christmas time. So it's like they're obsessed with it. Like update every 30 fucking seconds to see if they're going to win or not. Well, again, I don't know how it exactly works, but like you pick a team and they're all on different. But I know that once it starts, you can't make changes. So you're not doing anything except endorphin hitting yourself because you might win $100 at the end of the season or whatever it is. When they try to get me to play it, I'm like, how much is it? And they're like, well, it's $50 to buy in at the beginning. And I'm like, stop. If I give you $50 and just contribute it, will you shut the fuck up and leave me alone about this? Because I don't care. Football will be so much more entertaining. Don't need it. I don't need it. You have all the circuses you want. I do like football a little bit. I'll watch a game here and there, but like I can't live my life that way. I got shit to do.
Yeah, it's a lot of I used to go out and watch football games at bars and stuff because I enjoyed it. But as I started building the life I want to live, I had less. That was like more important to build the life than it was. Like this weekend, we were given a gift of awesome weather. And, I was torn between, do I do this clerical work and do I get outside and do the outside things? And I did a little bit of both. I was like, okay, this many hours I'll do clerical stuff. And then I'm going to go pollard my trees or whatever it was. And none of that involves sitting in front of a TV watching football for 4 hours.
No. Football to me is like, put it on when you're working in the shop and it can be in the background. Like that's, I'll put content on like that, or I'll put music on or something, but I'm actively doing something that's furthering my life. I'm not zoned into this thing. I do like some stupid, non-important BS type TV right before bed. Same reason I like to read like sci-fi novels or something when I lay in bed for like 20 minutes before I go to sleep, because it shuts my brain off so I can sleep. But I don't get it. Like even like sometimes there'll be like a big game on when we do a family gathering, and I'll put it on the TV. I'll turn the closed captions on, volume all the way down. You can look at the score whenever you want to because your phone's a phone jack. What about the other game? There's only one game on at a time. You got picture in picture? No, I don't. Yeah, you do. Let me show you. No, I don't. Doesn't exist here. It's not real. I disabled it. I'll just lie to them, because I don't know. It's a pet peeve, obviously, that I'm wasting my time on.
I make fun of them, and then we don't have the conversation anymore. They just stop coming around.
Yeah.
I like the picture of Leonard from what is that show? Big Bang Theory, where he's trying to fit in with the sports people, and he lifts his shirt up, and it says "Go Sports."
Go Sports.
Go Sports.
Yeah, we call it sports ball here. Sports ball. And one of the neighbors is going to watch the Super Bowl, maybe a couple of them, but that's fine.
I used to like the Super Bowl because it was an excuse to get a bunch of people together and drink beer and eat cool food. And then the commercials were funny. Well, now the commercials aren't funny anymore.
True.
So it ruined everything. Like they even screwed up Super Bowl commercials. Remember the great ones?
I did tune in for the halftime show a year or two ago. I wanted to see that.
There was a commercial years ago where it was like a FedEx commercial and they used a pterodactyl for airmail. And then like the pterodactyl takes off and the like giant dinosaur eats his ass. And he goes back to the dude that he works for, and they're all cavemen and shit, and he was like, what happened? He goes, didn't make it. You should. And the guy's like, you should have used FedEx. And the guy like hits him with a club. And then right after he hits the guy with a club, like a dinosaur smashes his ass. That was funny. The freaking Budweiser frogs were funny. Like what? And then they come out and they tell you how great the next day, the news people tell you how great the commercials were. And you're like, no, they weren't. They can't even make a commercial anymore. Everything's ruined. You can't make a beer commercial funny or sexy. It's over. Society. We have reached peak fiat and we are in decline. It is up to the next generation, to rebuild society now.
Yep.
Go Taylor's boyfriend.
How many people would even know? How many people would even know who that guy was if it wasn't for Taylor Swift?
I bet he's got a good agent.
It's all scripted. I mean, I believe that the NFL is actually scripted. I think they know a lot of what's going to happen before it even happens. There seems to be a lot of evidence towards that. I don't if you want to watch Super Bowl, go watch Super Bowl. I have real shit to do. I can't even tell you when the Super Bowl is. I got a cease and desist from the Super Bowl because we used their bullshit on one of our promos.
Okay.
I like that. We will always use it to our advantage, but I couldn't even name football teams right now. I don't give two shits about that. I have real world doing real shit, and I don't play football.
Yeah, I know it must be soon because the stores have all their snacks out.
I don't even know who's going to be in it.
Yeah,
No,
I
nor do I
don't know
care.
exactly when it is, but it must be either this weekend or next weekend because the stores have
It's February, so it will be next weekend because it's like right around Valentine's Day every year.
Yeah. And I did a resupply run this month, so
yeah, I have no idea who's in it. My son's all into it, but let me find out. I mean, really 49ers and Chiefs. So Taylor Swift's boyfriend is in the Super Bowl, so that's why we're still talking about him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we've been on about 2 hours. Is it time to wrap, or are we gonna keep going?
I need to go.
Jack needs to go.
Well,
okay,
let's
go once around the horn. Let's start with John Willis today.
You can, I do a live every night at 9:00 on YouTube. Super easy to find. There's 5,000 videos there. I do a little bit of different content on Facebook and Instagram. Pulling the Thread podcast on TikTok. We're about to break 100,000 on there. We're about to break 100,000 on YouTube. Usually when you ask a question and somebody interacts with you on social media, that's usually me. So super easy to get a hold of. We got a few hundred people jump on the lives every night, and we can discuss anything you want to talk about. So if you've got a question about anything you've heard here, business development, lifestyle, whatever, gear, that's what we really do is we build, nylon tactical gear and stuff. You can get on there and we can discuss anything you want to. And you can talk to the guy that actually owns the company and has been running the company for 35 years.
I'm Nicole Sauce from NicoleSauce.com and the Living Free in Tennessee podcast. And we've got early bird pricing on Self-Reliance Festival tickets. So grab those now. We've got some pretty good sessions coming up. Like right before this, I talked to a veterinarian who does herbal and natural sources. She's going to talk about animal nutrition and some basic framework for herbal remedies and the truth about some of the more traditional treatments for your animals and risks associated with that. I think it's going to be a pretty cool session at Self-Reliance Festival. You can get that at selfreliancefestival.com. And Jack, you get to close today.
Well, thank you, Nicole. I am Jack Spirko, host of the Survival Podcast, almost 16 years running now. We will have our 16-year anniversary in June of this year. So we've been around a while. I think this is episode 3,442 of my show. So we have a little bit of a catalog of content, which means if there's anything we talked about today that you want to know more about, if you go to the survivalpodcast.com and use that little search bar, you can find content on anything, in-depth interviews with experts. Sometimes it's just me teaching, etc. We do have the new composting course available at homefoodsystems.com. And there's more courses coming from that. And I think it's totally worth the money. We have had great results with so far and nothing but positive feedback. And thanks to both of y'all for being with us today. I always appreciate you guys taking your time to be with me and I with you on a Tuesday. First Tuesday of the month is a great time to do it. Last, though, we kind of buzzed right over y'all's program with Homestead Apprentice. Like, I'll put that out on the air for y'all later this week. That's something, if you're out there saying you want a shot at something, take the frickin' shot or shut the F up. I mean, really, like, we kind of did something similar without it being that organized when we had the Perma Ethos Farm. We gave people the opportunity to come out and do anything they wanted. And it blew me away how few people even tried. I was like, when I was 19, if somebody gave me this opportunity, you would have to blow me out of it with dynamite to get rid of me. I would have been on that like white on rice. And so, guys, if you're looking to change your life, I think that's an opportunity. And the competition may be tough, but the competition may be tough enough that if you're tough enough for it, it won't be that hard for you to get into the finals there based on the way it was described to me. So take a shot, because if you don't, I promise you, you won't get anywhere.